Porkins Policy Radio, offering a unique perspective on everything: geopolitics, culture creation, the reality of the world we live in. Coming to you live from New York City, your host, Pierce Redmond.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Porkins Policy Radio. As always, I am your host, Pierce Redmond, and you can find this show here at American Freedom Radio, AmericanFreedomRadio.com, as well as on my website, which is PorkinsPolicyReview.com. And you can always follow me on Twitter at Porkins Policy, and you can subscribe through to the show through RSS on YouTube and iTunes. And if you do use iTunes, definitely leave me a rating or a little review. That helps a lot with aggregating and moving the podcast up and whatnot. So more people will be able to check out the feed. Well, I am back from vacation, a much needed rest and relaxation. So I am back now. I'm very excited to be back. My brain is still a little bit frazzled. And we will be joined hopefully very soon by JP Sottile of newsvandal.com. We had him on the line, and then he just sent me a message saying that Skype had crashed and he was restarting. So he said he's almost back, so he should be there pretty soon. So Danny, you can try him, I don't know, in a few minutes or something like that. But we there's a lot to get into. I'll tell you this right now. I mean, I really tried my best on vacation to completely kind of cut myself off. So I barely used my phone at all, except for to take pictures and check the time. So when I came back from vacation, I was, just sort of overwhelmed by a variety of, news stories and, the stuff going on in Houston right now. I was trying my best to kind of, decipher all of this the other night, kind of figure out what the hell I wanted to get into, what I wanted to talk about. So of course I wanted to have, JP Sottile on, to discuss this. Because he does an excellent job of kind of deciphering through all this. But we live in such a crazy media environment right now. We're really you go a few for instance, I had my phone off when I left to go on vacation last Saturday, and I didn't really check it. I think I put it on airplane mode, and I didn't really check it, and then it was all of a sudden. I wake up and I had no idea what was going on in Houston. When I did come back finally, it was this I was just being bombarded. I still am not quite sure, what's going on in the world right now, what's important to be looking at, what's not important to be looking at. But I will say all the same, it has been very refreshing, to kind of take that week off and sort of, lose yourself. And I think we are now joined by JP Sottile. JP, are you there?
I am.
Okay,
just when
good.
It was getting interesting.
Yeah, right. Well, good. Yeah, I can stop rambling and I was trying to text you while I was talking, which is always impossible for me to do. But we are joined by JP Sottile, the man behind newsvandal.com. Of course, the Rundown newsletter, which I highly recommend to everybody. You can find all of JP's work at newsvandal.com, but he's also on Consortium News, the Anti-Media, lots of other places. JP Sottile, you just came back from vacation as well, right?
Well, I guess it's a vacation. It was a vacation only insofar as I cut off my news consumption at about 3 in the afternoon and reserved the afternoons for binge watching Barney Miller from the 70s.
Well, that's a vacation of sorts. I mean, certainly.
Yeah.
Well, as I was saying, I don't know if you caught in the beginning there, I was saying how kind of overwhelmed I was coming back from my vacation and trying to sort of decipher what's going on in the news. You know, I mean, we've got the alt-right Antifa beef seems to have sort of settled down a little bit, but then we've got Steve Bannon and my personal favorites, Sebastian Gorka, are now out of the White House. North Korea is launching missiles over Japan.
Yep.
Donald Trump has declared war on Afghanistan again. And as I said, in Houston is in shambles. JP, are we starting, you know, as the summer kind of comes to an end, we've got about 2 weeks left of summer officially. Are we starting to reach some sort of a new equilibrium in the news? You know, it does seem like the past few weeks it was all about the alt-right and the anti-fascists and the race war, and that sort of disappeared, and now we're kind of back to basics. You know, we were talking off air, Nikki Haley, another personal favorite of mine, you know, basically declaring war on Iran, saying that North Korea is begging for war. I don't think no one really begs for war.
Yeah.
But, you know, apparently North Korea is. So,
well, I'll tell you, there are some contractors outside
yes, that's true.
of the Beltway. They're always begging for war. I think it's a good question, Pierce, actually. There is a transition happening. I think the key, we could say there are tons of key events over the course of the last month. And I don't want to downplay anything, Charlottesville or the Antifa rumble in Berkeley, which I think, as you have alluded to, caused quite a backlash and I think has marginalized them a little bit on the left. Houston is in shambles. Irma is now a Category 5. It is bearing down on the Caribbean. The Florida Keys are being evacuated as we speak. There are all these things going on. I think the key moment to kind of give us a sense of what the news pace is going to be about over the course of the next couple months was Steve Bannon's departure. And then followed by Seb Gorka, and as I like to say, Seb Gorka is probably the name Jar Jar Binks would take if he became a Sith Lord.
Yes.
I mean, just, you know, I am now Seb Gorka. Anyway, and then, you know, Chris Kobach, actually, who was in charge of what was it? The commission to find the 5 million missing votes that should have, that gave Hillary Clinton the popular count in the election.
Right.
That he's now at Breitbart. Gorka is at Breitbart. Bannon is at Breitbart. And I wrote a piece for Consortium News, Bob Perry, titled it The Alt-Right's Alternative Reality. My working title was Bannon's Triangular Trumpism. And I think what we're seeing is the beginning of a political season. We've been in kind of ongoing chaos and crisis. But I think the 2018 elections began today. And I think DACA is about the 2018 elections. I think the border wall, the debt ceiling, the Iran nuclear deal, I think all of these issues that are about to come up, and these are all pet issues of Steve Bannon and the Bannon version of Trumpism, because we don't really know what Trumpism is. We just sort of have a general outline. Is it Bannonism? Is it Trumpism? Is it sort of an ethno-nationalism? Is it economic nationalism? But, you know, Trump saying that he's thinking about pulling out of the South Korea trade agreement at a time when you need South Korea to be your ally. Whether you like the agreement or not, probably the time when you're trying to put THAAD missile defenses all over South Korea is not a good time to lower the hammer on the trade deal. But if you have a Bannon point of view, where you are trying to triangulate against the free market, free trade, foreign policy establishmenteers inside your own party, the GOP, then maybe this is the time to start drawing these lines in the sand like DACA, so that the Republicans in Congress have to go on the record whether they are with you or against you. And if they are with you, then they will be supported in 2018 by Trump and rallies and Breitbart and the alt-right media environment. And if you go against Trump, also known as Bannon, then you will have the full force of Donald Trump's tweets and Breitbart's media machine working against you.
Completely agree, and I would definitely suggest people check out JP's article. It'll be linked up in the show notes. And just a very, very quick aside, I did laugh out loud when you were talking about Jar Jar Binks as a Sith Lord. And I don't know if you know, but there is a whole school of thought that he is a Sith Lord, and there's a cryptic comment by George Lucas that originally Jar Jar Binks was meant to be like one of the main characters who would eventually become a Sith Lord.
Well, he's the deciding vote.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So, when I came up with that little turn of phrase, I researched it, because when you come up with a joke that you think is really funny, it's very important you have to make sure nobody else thought of it first, because if you think it's funny, somebody else probably thought it was funny.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw all of the wonderful fan art showing Jar Jar Binks as a Sith Lord, and I think it's just awesome. You know, Jar Jar Binks probably was going to be a great character, except there was so much backlash after. And we could spend a lot of time on the first three films, which are that's
atrocious at best
of its own. So, but going into where we are now, I think that Bannon leaving was part of a design. I think it was designed to unleash him. You know, there was an article, I think it was over the weekend, I believe it was in the Times, maybe it was last Friday that it came out, that John Kelly is controlling all the information going to Trump now. This is the Chief of Staff, General John Kelly. He only reads paper, so he's controlling all the paper. Kelly sits in and listens in on all official phone calls, but he cannot stop Donald Trump from calling Bannon on his own time, and that's what's happening. Trump is still calling Bannon. They are still coordinating, and the much ballyhooed falling out of Steve Bannon, I think, was a big rope-a-dope, a big phony baloney, because this is now getting into the political season. And look, what have we seen, Pierce, from the time he came down can you believe this, came down the escalator in 2015? I mean, we're talking, this is 2 years we've been dealing with this. 2 years. Yeah. It has been nonstop campaigning on the part of Donald Trump, and he has not stopped campaigning since he got into office. One of the reasons why there's so much chaos is because that's all he has been doing is campaigning. There has been no governance whatsoever, and the campaigning is now beginning in earnest, because once we get into November and December, members of Congress, particularly people in the House of Representatives, are going to start raising cash, because they've got to start thinking about being reelected next year. And this is the thing that has really kept Donald Trump in the position that he's in, where he has, I don't know if you call it power, but he has leverage. And that leverage is that 38% of Americans, his hardened base of support, the hardcore Trumpsters, who make up a large percentage of the Republican electorate. And those members of Congress, particularly the people in the House of Representatives, because it's a little bit different as a senator, you have a larger demographic as opposed to a gerrymandered district. Those people are scared to death of Donald Trump unleashing his Twitter feed and ginning up his supporters and primarying them sometime next year.
Oh, and I think, like you point out in the article, I mean, Bannon himself in the Weekly Standard said he was always going to leave in a year. I think the base, the hardcore base, likes the idea of, they're forcing these people out. When in reality, I assume Bannon would probably much rather prefer to be at Breitbart, where he can say whatever he wants, even more so, and he can still, call up the president and say, this is a good idea, you should say this, use these types of key phrases at your rally. I love that he's still doing, like, campaign stump speeches, and still bragging about, I think you referenced in the article, he talks about, like, a debate or something like, it's like, the debate's over, man. Like, just get over it. This is, you're well past that. But getting more into the sort of politics, because, I loved your article to read when I came back, because I was sort of, in this vacation bubble. You kind of forget what's going on. And it is interesting to see the alt-right and the sort of Trump supporters and whatnot, the mental gymnastics that they're going through. in trying to kind of justify this and saying this is all okay or this is bad. It's the globalists or the Jews or, Kushner and what's the, Gary Cohn are actually in control and we gotta oust them and the globalists, blah, blah, blah. But, moving that aside, because I think that's really more of just a way of, keeping them interested and keeping, having some sort of a goal line ahead. But looking at some of the politics of this, because ultimately this is, going to greatly affect politics, as you say, 2018. All of these senators and congresspeople are going to be running, okay? Many of them Republican. And what are they going to do with Donald Trump, in the position that he is now? Because do you run away from him? As I would assume many people want to, he's not well liked by pretty much anybody, I would say, establishment or the not so establishment, Republicans. Nobody is really falling over themselves trying to kind of, praise him or support his things. There's really nothing, how do you run with the president in your party who really hasn't accomplished anything? There's no bills that have been signed. There's no laws that have been passed. There's some proclamations. There's a lot of rhetoric. And then you add on top of that, the shit salad that you point out that, if he links the debt ceiling, which will have to be raised yet again, not that I'm in favor of it, but it will be raised. That's just how these things work. But he's linking it to the Great Wall of Mexico. So, again, and nobody, it doesn't matter. You could be a hardcore born-again Republican, but, if you stop if you shut down the government, there's no, good, way of spinning that to your constituents.
That is a political loser. We know that. If you are tagged with being responsible for keeping the government from opening, you're going to pay. And the Republicans know that. And they embraced the burning tire. They put the burning tire around their neck, and now they don't know what to do. And you make a lot of great points. I could tell you, I'm not, it's not a direct source, but through one degree of separation, I have somebody who talks to people, in leadership in the Senate in particular, Republican side. Donald Trump is not liked.
Yeah.
And what Donald Trump did with Senator Heller in Nevada, Senator Murkowski in Alaska during the healthcare debate, the healthcare fight, whatever you want to call it, the Trump care vote, did not go over well. It went over like the Hindenburg. And, these are people who Mitch McConnell wants to keep elected so that he keeps, in the Senate so that he can keep control of the majority so that they can do the one thing that they really want to do, which is give a tax cut, particularly to upper income brackets and corporations. Whether you agree with supply side economics or not, that's what they want to do. That's their thing. That's always been a Republican thing. They may or may not believe it's going to stoke the economy. It may be irrelevant whether it stokes the economy. The track record is not good on supply side economics, but that's what they want to do. The chances of that getting through now have been diminished because of all of the political damage that has been done on these other issues, particularly the healthcare vote. So the healthcare vote, that was just a flaming disaster. Yeah. And one of the things that I think the Senate in particular learned is that Donald Trump as a politician is somebody who likes to hoard the credit and likes to offload the guilt. So if something fails, it's your problem. If something succeeds, it's my success. And so that's not a winning way of working with Congress, because Congress is really about one of the reasons why you get these ridiculous budget deals with all this pork in it and all of these different little riders is because the way you get something through is you give everybody a chance to get their beak wet. And if everybody gets their beak wet a little bit, then you can get the bulk of what you need done through in the bill, and you just hand out some goodies here or there, and you collect some votes, and you get it done, and then everybody can claim success so that nobody really has to take all the blame, and everybody can cover their butts going into the next election. That's not the game that Donald Trump is playing. And so there's this weird sort of synergy between Bannon's ideological foundation, which I think is in sort of a slightly ethno-nationalist, certainly economic nationalist agenda of isolationism. You know, he does not think the United States should be dealing with Afghanistan at this point. He does not think the United States should be dealing with North Korea. That kind of it's a combination of libertarianism and alt-rightism that sort of merged together, and it's very confusing, I think. Trump's main policy objective is airtime.
Yeah.
That's it. So he is, in a way, the perfect Tweedledum to Bannon's Tweedledee, because he's this empty vessel that Bannon has been filling for years. I mean, here's an interesting little thing. Gabe Sherman for New York Magazine wrote a piece a while back on the genesis, this was about 18 months ago, on the genesis of Donald Trump's campaign. And Donald Trump's campaign was basically created out of whole cloth. His campaign agenda was created out of whole cloth by Roger Stone, somebody you and your listeners familiar with, Michael Cohen, his lawyer, and one more individual. And what they did is they hired people to listen to right-wing talk radio. And they would write down the buzzwords that they heard the most often, and those became memos that were sent to Donald Trump saying, this is why you need to run on these issues. Why did we hear Donald Trump keep talking about, we got to get rid of Common Core? Pierce, do you think by any stretch of your imagination that Donald Trump knows anything about Common Core?
No. I don't think he could possibly talk about it for more than 30 seconds.
No, then that's because he would say Common Core, it's terrible, it's awful, it's just terrible for it. He could do 30 seconds.
Yeah, right.
Okay, but Common Core was something that if you went to right-wing radio circa 2014 and were listening to Limbaugh and Michael Savage, Common Core was considered one of these elite liberal Washington top-down socialist agenda things that was being pushed down the throats of real Americans trying to educate their kids. And so that is one of the buzzwords that came up, just like globalist, just any of these buzzwords, these alt-right, right-wing buzzwords, that's what Donald Trump is cued off of. So again, he's this perfect vessel. Unfortunately, there are some real policy consequences. The United States right now is killing civilians at an unprecedented rate. Now, when I say unprecedented, I mean unprecedented for the war on terror. We're talking about more civilians killed in Donald Trump's first 6 months by bombing in various countries, including Syria and Iraq and the Horn of Africa, Afghanistan, than was killed by during the entire 8 years of Barack Obama's presidency. And Barack Obama's presidency was not friendly to civilians, particularly the drone strikes. I've written about it, and it's been detailed many times on radio shows I've done. I've spoken about one of the great stains on Obama's presidency is going to be the summary execution of suspected militants by drone. Even with that, Donald Trump's loosening of the rules of engagement is killing tens of hundreds of civilians. So that's a real policy consequence. There are real policy consequences happening environmentally. There are real policy consequences happening financially, right? Because one of the things that the war on the administrative state is doing is it's not putting regulators in place. It's not putting people in place in some of the key agencies. So it's really just governance by evacuation. And by evacuating some of these agencies, there are a lot of oversight of Wall Street is not happening, which is one of the reasons why you have Goldman Sachs all up in Donald Trump's environment, right? I mean, it's right in there. In his little world, in his little galaxy, they are right there orbiting because they're circling for what? Less oversight is great and the great tax cut. So we come back around to the politics. The tax cut is the one thing that has the possibility of getting done, but everything else is something that is a ideological puzzle for the Republicans in Congress. And let me finish with this one thing. I think it's notable that one of the things that Steve Bannon was on the record for during his time in the White House was during the discussions over a potential tax deal, tax reform, he was pushing for higher income tax on upper brackets. When I heard that, I said, that's really interesting, because that's in diametric opposition to everything that the establishment Republicans have wanted for 40 years, 50 years, and everything that they're fighting for in this Congress. It's in diametric opposition to what Donald Trump is saying, but I'll bet you that it's something that Donald Trump can be sucked into ideologically by Steve Bannon if Steve Bannon bends his ear enough, because it's a populist agenda item that fits in with that Breitbart universe.
Oh, and that's indicative of Trump's this phony persona that he had as I'm gonna take on Wall Street by hiring mostly Goldman Sachs bankers to surround me. I'm gonna stick it to those stupid generals and get out of war by surrounding myself, and now my chief of staff is a general. Yeah. So it's all he's very much like Peter Sellers' character in Being There. He can be whomever you want.
Chauncey Gardner, maybe.
And I've used that analogy before, and I mean, Trump is definitely not going to walk on water. Spoiler alert to the end of the movie, but he is in that sense that you can project. I mean, it's like you see all of these dipshits like Mike Cernovich and others who after the I'm sure you were watching it along as I was this Afghanistan speech, and at the end of it. It was, like Cernovich and others were like, oh, why'd we even vote now? And it's like, I don't know. Why did you? Did you honestly think that this was going to be different? I mean, it's, again, as you sort of point out over and over again in your article, is both the ways in which Trump is kind of screwing over many Republicans with just sort of silly, how are you going to, if you can barely get anything passed now, when he more or less has, he has support, in terms of numbers. If he continues along this, I mean, he's going to have no support because none of these Republicans they're going to have to run away from him if they want to get elected. And many of them could easily get unseated because of this sort of crazy rhetoric.
Well, but Pierce, isn't that the beauty of the paradigm? Is that at once he is the great conquering hero and the perennial victim. Mm-hmm. So this is why I think the weaponization of deep state is troubling to me, because I think that there is something that we could call the deep state. I think the deep state has in a way morphed over the course of the last 15, 20 years. There was a big change in the deep state when the war on terror happened. I think the deep state actually came to the surface and became the state. That's, in a sense, what the sort of the homeland security version of America is. It's the emergence of the deep state from the shadows to become the state itself. Because from the point at which the Dulles brothers basically set it in motion with John Foster and Alan Dulles, one at the State Department and one at the CIA, it had been a shadow government, and I mean that in every sense of that term, but it had been shadowing the actual government sort of behind the scenes, because the American people were fighting a Cold War, but they were fighting a Cold War based on a set of ideas and principles like human rights and freedom and liberty, and we rescued the world from fascism, and we're the
save it from the commies now.
Save it from the commies. So the gap between the stated ideals and the actual actions of the American government, particularly in foreign policy, had to be obscured by the shadow between the operational state and the deep state. I think after 9/11, with the coming of the war of terror, as I call it, thanks to got to give a tip of the cap to Borat, the movie for that, but that gap has closed, because I think that deep state is now out in the open. So what the deep state has become now is a weapon to basically explain away the failures of the Trump administration. So why are we in Afghanistan? Why are we staying in Afghanistan? Why is the United States there? It's not because a mining magnate sat down with Donald Trump and said, hey, did you know, Mr. President, that it's reputed that there's $1 trillion worth of untapped mineral resources in Afghanistan, which apparently Donald Trump thought, wow, that's really cool. Maybe we want to get a piece of that. And it's not because Donald Trump said many times during the campaign, we're going to bomb the shit out of these people and I want to kill all of their families, or because he said in his inauguration that I want to wipe radical Islam from the face of the earth. Okay? Those things to me say, yeah, you know what? He's not actually a non-interventionist. He may be selective in where he wants to intervene, but he's not afraid of using power, and he's not afraid of taking resources. What did he say about Iraq? If it was me, I'd take the oil.
Right.
Okay. So take the oil, take the minerals, bomb the bejesus out of them, whatever it is. But what the deep state story allows the Mike Cernoviches of the world to do is after they reel initially, when they want to come back around to Donald Trump, they can say, oh, well, it's the generals. It's because General McMaster, he showed Donald Trump a picture of 2 Afghani women from 1973, and they were wearing miniskirts. And McMaster said, see, we can make them wear miniskirts again. And because Donald Trump really cares a lot about seeing women in miniskirts, he got duped by the generals. Donald Trump did not get duped. He did not get duped. Do you want to know what Donald Trump does not want to do? He doesn't want to be seen as weak. And turning away from Afghanistan right now was something that was going to look ultimately weak. And he did not want to look weak. That's the real simple answer to that question. But as you pointed out, because there's this feeling that there are these nefarious forces, and it's, the globalists and the deep state and the media and George Soros and the Rothschilds, and they're the ones who are actually making it impossible for Donald Trump to do anything on healthcare and to get us out of these wars and to make America great again. Trump then becomes the great martyr to the cause, and that martyrdom is in effect the way that you hold on to that 38% and keep them from bleeding away, and that allows them to be weaponized, to be used against the Republicans, to hold the Republicans hostage to the Trump Bannon agenda.
Beautifully put, JP. And I think this whole notion of Trump as this tragic martyr figure is ultimately that'll probably be the interpretation amongst his base.
Sure.
When history books are written.
Or when new television networks are funded by the Mercers.
Yes, I know. Well, and I'm so glad you pointed out the Mercers in your piece. They're, I know very little about them other than, I know that Robert Mercer exists. He lives out in Long Island. I know he's quite wealthy, and I know that he gives a lot of money. But he is like the George Soros of the right, this person who's, and in many ways, I don't want to get too caught up in the Soros stuff, but, Soros's influence here in America, I think, personally myself, is fairly limited. Whereas overseas in places like Central Asia and possibly now even in Myanmar, where the Rohingya are, that's where George Soros actually does stuff.
And Eastern Europe, very much so in Eastern Europe. Yeah.
Definitely.
Open Society has been all over. Open Society really went in to the satellites of the former Soviet Union and set up shop. And that's where they became integrated with Freedom House and some of these semi-governmental agencies that are run out of the foreign policy establishment of Washington, D.C., they were trying to co-opt all of those countries to the West to limit Soviet or former Soviet, to limit Russian influence. Totally.
Again, when it's not just a coincidence that Soros sets up open society in Kyrgyzstan, visits Kyrgyzstan, and then several weeks later there's a color revolution in Kyrgyzstan.
Right.
That's true.
Yes.
And the Kyrgyz people know that and are very wary when Soros shows up. But here in America, he doesn't really, I'm sure he funds various groups. Everybody does. But, I think he's much more content with screwing over countries elsewhere, like in Central Asia or now in the Mekong region of Asia, where there's actually, resources and things to be had with it. I don't think really Soros cares much about screwing with domestic politics and starting a race war, whereas Robert Mercer and his family are clearly doing that. They're openly doing, not openly, people don't really, he's very reclusive, but they are pumping a lot of money into Trump, and they are pumping a lot of money into the more sort of psychotic foreign policy cliques and stuff. Iran is the ultimate threat, and we've got to take them out and reshape the Middle East. And I was just glad you mentioned Mercer, because it is, it's like, you're not allowed to mention anyone other than George Soros apparently now.
Well, or the Koch brothers.
Yeah.
You could mention the Koch brothers, but these are the ideological Koch brothers, and it's Robert Mercer and his daughter Rebecca. They're the active ones. They are the ones responsible for really pushing Michael Flynn into Trump's orbit.
That's right.
The Mercers, when after Andrew Breitbart passed away and Breitbart was kind of hanging out there and Bannon came in, the Mercers put $10 million in there, and they're funding. They are funding Breitbart, and they went in and they set up the company that ended up turning into Cambridge Analytica, and Cambridge Analytica was the data mining and micro-targeting company that was spreading news and fake news targeted stories on Facebook at Hillary voters to demoralize them and at Trump voters to activate them. And who was on the board of Cambridge Analytica? It was Steve Bannon and Mike Flynn. And Mike Flynn is one of the reasons he became National Security Advisor, is because of the influence of the Mercers, both through Bannon and directly on Donald Trump. And the Mercers are also, they're very much into that Frank Gaffney, Islamophobia, Pamela Geller kind of, Islam is taking over the world, and they think that Islam is in a civilizational struggle against the West to destroy the West and sublimate it. And that's all part of this weird memo by Rich Higgins, who was a national security aide, who was part of the Mike Flynn crew that was there at the National Security Council that has finally been purged by McMaster. And, this guy Higgins wrote a memo, and in this memo he basically said that there are these Maoist establishmentarians inside the national security state, and they are working in concert with a vast Islamicist conspiracy around the world to destroy the United States. And that is one of the reasons why Donald Trump is facing all these leaks, because this conspiracy between these two forces is actually trying to destroy Donald Trump, because they know that Donald Trump is the only thing that stands between America and the end of America. Which then gets back into this martyrdom narrative that I think that, as you point out, is going to be accepted pretty readily, and understandably so, because look, on some level, Pierce, when I look at all of this and what we're seeing, it's very easy to write off a lot of these alt-right conspiracy folks, because these are pretty fanciful things. But on the other hand, if we start looking back at American history, going back to the overthrow of Mossadegh, and then what the United States did to Arbenz, and then the killing of Kennedy, and then the secret war in Laos and Cambodia, and then we get Watergate, and then we get Iran-Contra, and we get the CIA crack cocaine issue that Gary Webb uncovered, and I think is becoming ever more apparent to people that Gary Webb was right. And then you get 9/11, and you get the WMDs, and it's been one thing after another that convinces people. And I'm just going for the big,
the jugular,
the big one.
Big ticket
I'm not talking about Timothy McVeigh and what the heck happened there. I mean, you can really start going into the rabbit hole, but the rabbit holes are there for a reason. And I'm not saying all the rabbit holes are right, but one of the reasons the rabbit holes are there is because something like 77% of Americans do not think that Lee Harvey Oswald was the lone assassin. And this is something that happened in 1963. So there is this environment in which distrust of the government is so much a part of what we experience as Americans now, in no small part because, for Christ's sakes, the United States destroyed an entire country under false pretenses beginning just 14 years ago. I mean, the Iraq War is, if any other country had done to Iraq what the United States did to Iraq, if Russia had done that to Iraq, imagine the outrage, imagine the call for war crimes prosecutions, imagine the sanctions that Russia would face had it done to Iraq what the United States did to Iraq. And so I think Americans know, even if they're not cognizant of the extent to which the United States is itself a rogue nation based on a series of lies and misdirections, I think they know intrinsically. And I think a lot of what Trump and Bannon, what they play off of, is this deep-seated and in many ways well-founded distrust of the United States system.
Oh, certainly. This is they've made, particularly Bannon and now Trump. I mean, that's his whole presidency is sort of predicated on this notion.
Yes.
The thing I find disturbing about it, and even like I used to use the term deep state quite a bit, and I've now sort of shied away from it because it's sort of like tainted, and people don't, when I used it, it didn't mean Obama and George Soros. It was a much sort of more amorphous, larger group who really only operates when all of their various objectives sort of fall in line. But they've sort of poisoned the well so much. Yeah. The alt media in my mind is dead. Or how it once existed. And they've also kind of, they've contaminated the my beloved conspiracy culture because, you can't, everything is a conspiracy with them, but it's ultimately, so many of them fall back into it's all a conspiracy, but as long as we have the right man running the government, there will be no more conspiracies. That's, because apparently Trump will save us all from the dark cabals around us. But that's sort of dead now. It just, it doesn't exist. And again, it's just, it was the deep state. That's the problem. While all the same, there are so many little things that are slipping by us. Again, you point out in your article, Trump quietly, reversing the order to ship, military surplus to our beloved police force, various police forces. I mean, this used to be one of those, this used to be something Alex Jones was always going on about.
Sure.
Rightfully so. The militarization and, it's like you don't need FEMA camps to round people up when everyone's local police force is outfitted like, fucking stormtroopers.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'll try to be illustrative here of your point. When I think of the deep state, I think of Peter Dale Scott. He's the guy. He's the man he's the granddaddy of this thing. And when I think of the deep state, particularly, as I thought about it in the late 90s when I was at a defense policy think tank as a researcher and whatnot, to me the deep state is something that happened on golf courses out in Virginia where generals and executives from oil companies and defense companies shot, 18 holes, and over the course of 18 holes came up with quiet deals that would benefit them all. To me, the deep state is the nexus of power between it's the iron triangle of the Pentagon, the oil industry, and the defense industry. Mm-hmm. And in the center of that triangle is that nebulous zone of kind of revolving doors where people move in and out of these different seats of power, these different parts of this three-part axis, and they're able to quietly move American policy toward their own enrichment. So now that we have this other idea of deep state as these sort of rogue Maoist, revolutionary, counter-revolutionaries, because they're Maoist counter-revolutionaries. That's my favorite part of it. that they're trying to keep Donald Trump from making America great again. At the same time, what he has done is he's put executive from Raytheon and executive from Lockheed in charge of procurement at the Pentagon. So in many ways, he's actually running the ultimate red herring program to move everybody away from the trail and look at this other deep state thing over there, when the functional deep state, because if I look at where's Donald Trump's base of support? It's the defense industry.
Banks.
It's banks. It's the oil and gas industry and Saudi Arabia. And when I look at those four players, that's the deep state.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Entirely. From top to bottom. Well, again, he is like Peter Sellers. I mean, he can be whomever you want. And obviously so many of these, deep state actors saw that and they were like, well, it doesn't really matter what he's saying right now because we can still get in here. And we can do that's what's so funny. Like you pointed out earlier that, after 9/11, the deep state sort of became the state. I think that's true in so many ways. They become much more open about this is how we operate. We don't really need to go through the sort of motions of, okay, well, I'm in Goldman Sachs now or I was in the army, so I can't be part of this or, he's given passes to all these guys so that they can go from being generals to, heads of intelligence agencies. So they're much more, in a lot of ways transparent, which I guess is like kind of a positive, it's no longer in the shadows. It is, while and I just love picking on him, the Mike Cernoviches of the world will sort of, put their blinders up and pretend like Trump taking advice from Eric Prince isn't, the deep state at work.
Right.
But,
exactly.
Okay, cool. Like, do you, dog, but like, for all of us, we can now kind of see this. I can even point this out. Like, even my parents are sort of taking notice of, well, damn, that's a lot of generals and defense contractors and arms dealers, basically, that are now running the government.
Yep. Well, and look, this may be, I know people hate to hear this. Donald Trump may in some way be a positive thing insofar as he is lancing a boil. And it is actually becoming some of these things, as you say, are becoming ever more apparent. Now, this stuff has been kind of going on out in the open, but really now it's so completely without shame and so hard to avoid, sort of, because unfortunately, Donald Trump at the same time is the ultimate shiny object. And because the media plays along with the shiny object, look, you and I, we talked about this on a previous show. There is something there in the Russia thing. I think it is notable that you almost hear nothing about the DNC data breach anymore because that's not where the action is. The action is at a place called Trump Soho in Bayrock Capital. Yeah. That's where the action is. And that's where that's why Mueller went to Snyderman and went to the IRS. That's where the action is. But to talk about the Russiagate scandal every single day at the exclusion of all else for 5 or 6 months has been very, very costly in terms of seeing the full extent of how he has lanced this festering boil on the body politic. And we're not sorting through what comes out of that lanced boil because we're spending all this time looking over here at this other thing, which actually feeds into Donald Trump's own narrative. Because the more Donald Trump is under duress at some conspiracy, some scandal designed to destroy him, the more that feeds his own personal narrative and the narrative that he is feeding his base. As opposed to, I'll give you an example. If I was in the media, let's just say I ran CNN for the sake of argument. Sorry, Jeff Zucker. We finally realized you did the poop ship for 18 hours. We're firing you. Now JP is in charge. The first thing I would do is I would get Cy Hirsch on for a full hour to talk about his story about the missile strike on Syria and how Donald Trump was told, we don't know for certain that Syria was behind the chemical attack, so we do not think that this is something that we should be retaliating for because we don't have any confirmation. And Donald Trump said, I don't care. I want to fire a missile anyway. And so then the general said, here are your 4 options. If you pick the 2 greater options, including a decapitation strike and a full-on invasion, we have decided, Mattis and McMaster, we've decided we're going to resign instead of carrying out your orders. If you pick the first 2 options, the lighter options, the lightest of which was a phony baloney missile strike that we set up as kind of a shadow play with the Russians. We actually worked with the Russians to say, you get the big material, the heavy equipment and the planes off the tarmac. We'll tell you where the target's coming. We'll give you the time. You make sure that everybody's gone. Donald Trump will get his missile. Nobody will be hurt basically by this, and we will get to shut this guy up, and we can go on and live a life of religious fulfillment. And Donald Trump said, okay, that's the one I want, not knowing that his generals had basically set up a phony baloney strike just to placate him. So, again, if I was trying to attack Donald Trump, I'd have Cy Hirsch on 24/7 for 2 weeks. Because to me, that is damaging in a way that is well beyond anything else that we've heard to this point out of the Russiagate investigation. Now, we may hear something pretty big pretty soon, particularly on money laundering or whatever, but that Cy Hirsch thing never even made it through for 1 split second on MSNBC or CNN. Not even 1 split second of Cy Hirsch. He had to publish that on Die Welt, a German broadcaster and news source. So that, why? Because the Russiagate soap opera is doing what? It's generating ratings. It's generating ratings for the media, and it's generating the kind of ratings that Donald Trump wants because they are basically locked in an embrace of mutual benefit.
Oh yeah, well, and he's still on TV. He can still go on and on about it. And again, as you say, I mean, he is the martyr. He's the victim in all of this to his base, and to and of course to people that maybe don't even necessarily like him, but they hate the MSNBC more, so they'll sort of jump on that bandwagon. He's being persecuted. Well, no, I know. I mean, the Cy Hirsch one is basically, his daughter showed him a YouTube video that was probably altered, so he decided to launch missiles. This is not a guy that's. I mean, that alone should be crazy to everybody. Especially, you pointed out, because we're running out of time, JP. You pointed out the top of the hour that Trump is now, he's killing civilians on a way higher level than Obama was. Yet this is virtually unknown. To be. I mean, it's and rightfully so. People nitpicked Obama, who was terrible. I mean, with civilian, murder, mass murder, basically, and drone strikes, particularly in Pakistan, and his whole redefinition of collateral damage and whatnot. As long as you're next to a terrorist, it's fine. You can be vaporized by a drone. But how is it that the Trump is? I mean, and this is the scary thing. We don't know what's going on. People people don't even barely know who Mike Pompeo is. He's That's completely flipped the switch. Leon Panetta, everybody knew who this guy. He loved being in front of a camera. He loved being the CIA director. And that's the same for the several CIA directors before him. Mike Pompeo is back to old school, spook spycraft. Don't have a public persona. And we have no concept of what the CIA is really getting up to. With drones. I mean, I know that drones are happening again in Pakistan, but what's shocking is that even, like you said, MSNBC won't put on Cy Hirsch, which would be normal for them. But you don't even see, Human Rights Watch or Amnesty International going on and on about civilian casualties and things like that. Well, I mean, why?
No. It's a great point. And this is the danger. Trump may be the shiny object the deep state's been waiting for all along.
Absolutely. Well, JP Sottile, we're at the break, but of course, tell everybody quickly where they can go to listen to all your work and read your articles.
Well, just go to newsvandal.com. The Consortium News stuff stays on Consortium News. It's original there. But go to newsvandal.com, sign up for the rundown, and Pierce, it's always great to talk with you. Can't wait to talk with you again.
Thank you so much, JP, and stick with me. I'll be back in the second hour going solo, but lots more to discuss, so stay tuned.
Welcome to the world's meeting place. American.
It's practically narcotic.
Freedom.
Oh, yes, I like very much.
Radio.
You're an American institution.
American Freedom Radio.
Since the beginning, civilizations have risen and fallen. Rome, ancient Persia, Mongolia, Britain, and now America. Befallen by natural disasters, broken families, moral decay, lack of preparedness and conflict. Don't let this happen to you. Are you prepared? Would you like to help others prepare? AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com is looking for distributors. Email bugoutamerica@usa.com. Go to AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com, a veteran-owned and operated company. But do it today.
Quality, value, style, service, selection, convenience, economy, savings, performance, experience, hospitality, low rates, friendly service, name brands, easy terms, affordable prices, money-back guarantee, free installation. Free admission, free appraisal, free alterations, free delivery, free estimates, free home trial, and free parking. No cash, no problem, no kidding. No fuss, no muss, no risk, no obligation, no red tape, no down payment, no entry fee, no hidden charges, no purchase necessary, no one will call on you, no payments or interest till September. But limited time only, though, so act now, order today, send no money, offer good while supplies last, 2 to a customer, each item sold separately, batteries not included, mileage may vary, all sales are final, allow 6 weeks for delivery, some items not available, some assembly required, some restrictions may apply. So come on in. Come on in. Hey, come on in. Dang it. So come on in for a free demonstration and a free consultation with our friendly professional staff. Our experienced and knowledgeable sales representatives will help you make a selection that's just right for you and just right for your budget. And say, don't forget to pick up your free gift, a classic, deluxe, custom, designer, luxury, prestige, high quality, premium, select, gourmet pocket pencil sharpener. Yours for the asking, no purchase necessary. It's our way of saying thank you. And if you act now, we'll include an extra added free complimentary bonus gift, a classic, deluxe, custom, designer, luxury, prestige, high quality, premium, select, gourmet, combination key ring, magnifying glass, and garden hose in a genuine imitation leather style carrying case with authentic vinyl trim. Yours for the asking, no purchase necessary. It's our way of saying thank you. Actually, it's our way of saying bend over just a little bit farther.
You're listening to AmericanFreedomRadio.com, the network who perseveres in delivering intelligent debate, constructive dialogue with true independence. The freedom to broadcast the truth is not free at all. So what is American Freedom Radio worth to you? The empowering information with fun, honest and pure integrity behind it provides an example to follow, friendships to flourish, with the moral altruism that pulls no punches. The hosts sacrifice and show remarkable discipline in their duty to deliver quality radio and service to the community with strength, wisdom and loyalty. The founders of AFR wish to thank you personally for sharing your views and insights to make the best radio and alternative media. Now it's time for you to give something back and play a vital role in the future of America. Be as generous with us as we've been with you. Click on the donate banner at AmericanFreedomRadio.com or volunteer by emailing AmericanFreedomRadio@ymail.com. Vaccine, psychotropic drugs, and artillery batteries not included.
Launch sequence initiated.
We're now in the approach phase. Everything looking good. Control is good. 5, rocket copy. 3, 2, 1. Engage.
Prepare your mind to experience American Freedom Radio. Porkins Policy Radio, offering a unique perspective on everything: geopolitics, culture creation, the reality of the world we live in. Coming to you live from New York City, your host, Pierce Redmond.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to Porkins Policy Radio. I am your host, Pierce Redmond. If you're just joining us right now in the second hour, we were speaking with JP Sottile in the first hour. Lots of good stuff. Highly recommend all of JP's work. Newsvandal.com. The Rundown is an excellent newsletter that you get every day right in your email box. And really, people, you're listening right now, or read JP's article that was on, or it's at consortiumnews.com. Lots of great points in there, lots of great links and little various rabbit holes for you to go down when it comes to Bannon and his whole sort of agenda and ideology. JP touches on so many different things. So great article to look at. And I kind of wanted to, I have some stuff here. I've got some notes and things. I thought maybe I would keep it kind of light in the second hour, but perhaps we'll go in a slightly different direction. But I did want to kind of touch on something that if I could have gotten JP for 2 hours, we would have picked up on again. But that is this as JP pointed out, and as some outlets are sort of covering, I just sort of Googled it, but this civilian deaths under Trump, and you'll see, there's Newsweek. There's I think, what is this? A CFR, Council on Foreign Relations article. It's by Mika Zenko, who is actually fairly good at CFR, or writes interesting stuff. There are some sort of reports on this, but it is shocking that it's not front page news from the very same people that hate Donald Trump, and I think that speaks volumes to this. I don't know what it is, this sort of miasma, this sort of cloud of bullshit that so many of us have been sort of, under the spell, that even outlets or, groups, swats of various people that would essentially want to kind of criticize Trump for being a warmonger, for being someone that clearly, if Obama didn't care much about civilian casualties, Trump cares even less. Okay, and this is, as referenced by things like airstrikes. Civilian deaths in Iraq and Syria from U.S. airstrikes are up 60% under Trump. So he really doesn't care, and I think that's true in the sense that he doesn't care himself. He'll just let anybody do whatever they want. Okay, sure, you want to do that? Fine. That's no problem. And the fact that you don't see like Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, these are groups that oddly under when Obama was president, they were much more vocal about these things. Now I really I don't necessarily like either Amnesty or Human Rights Watch, but they do serve a purpose. I mean, they I don't think we need to necessarily disregard everything they say. But it's fascinating that they're not making a bigger stink about this. That instead, instead, a lot of these, human rights groups or sort of, civil liberties groups and things, they're much more concerned about, right-wing terrorists, and rightfully so to some degree, or they're more concerned about, the rise of white nationalism. And I get that, I think that's important, but it is shocking that, Obama in many ways will go down in history as the drone president. He really kind of, unleashed what Bush and the neocons started in places like Pakistan and Somalia, Afghanistan, Yemen, definitely. All these hotspots that Donald Trump is going even more balls to the wall with drones. Again, fulfilling the ultimate truism in the American presidency that, whatever the guy before you starts, you're going to expand. Presidents don't wield power, they don't sort of rein in power. Okay, they only extend power, or if they don't extend it, they use the power that they have. No president is like, oh, you know what, I don't want to have the ability to casually call in a drone strike, with like a text to the generals or something like that. I'm being sort of silly with that analogy, but they don't do that. And if anything, Donald Trump has expanded upon this airstrike campaign that was, already expanded upon by Obama. Yet, where is everybody on these things? And I think that, as JP and I were talking, this is indicative of this new kind of mentality that we're all in. And not all, I think, all of my, or most of my listeners, because we're going to get to some listener comments that I received recently that I think will sort of tie into this discussion here. But for so many people out there, it really is all about this cheap political game. It's either you're with the deep state or you're against the deep state. You're either against the Russians or you're with the Russians, and that is seeping into even these sort of geopolitical events or these war crimes. Basically, I mean they are war crimes. There's no way killing 2,000 civilians. Whoops. Sorry, you shouldn't have been near that mosque that was a ISIS recruiting center or something like that. But that's Trump's new air war. Just pulled up a Daily Beast article. And, these are not, I don't know, this isn't something that I think is being overblown or something like that. I mean, this is really happening. Yet and even the Rachel Maddows of the world and those sort of people that, love to be opposed to war when it's politically convenient for them, even they won't touch this. And I wonder if, that I think in part it's this, as I said, this spell that we've been put under, ever since the inauguration. It was really some sort of occult ritual, and some sort of spell was cast on the American public where they don't, it's funny. It's like this petty, almost like petty high school bullshit that they get upset about. It's oh, well, what did Trump tweet today? And they hate him. They get riled up by reading about his tweets, yet they wake up in the morning, the first thing they do is they got to check Twitter, and they got to check what did Donald Trump tweet, for the, couple hours that I wasn't looking at my phone. Oh my God, what did he say? And, oh, I'm going to say something back to him. There's that sort of thing. Then there's this constant, battle. It's all about, we've got to fight the deep state and the globalists and and then it's the Jews and this and that. And there's that kind of faction that, again, these are the people that were, pimped out Donald Trump as an anti-war, anti-interventionist, sort of, pseudo-libertarian, foreign policy type candidate. Yet, when leaving aside the fact that he's clearly not any of those things, okay? Leaving aside that he's obviously ready to spend another 30 years or so in Afghanistan at least, another 15 for sure, but probably more after that. Leaving that aside, he's doing all these things that they were ideologically, they claim to ideologically be opposed to, but they don't want to talk about it, And again, and they spin that as, it's the deep state. They're the ones that are really carrying these things out. It doesn't matter that Donald Trump isn't speaking up against this. It doesn't matter that Donald Trump isn't at least even this is the thing that I find so fascinating with this, is that it's basically unspoken. You wouldn't know that Trump is going to outpace Obama in civilian deaths before his first term even is up. But first term, but he hasn't even been there for a full year, right? And already he's on record to outpace Obama in civilian mass murder. But it's nowhere. It's not even on the radar, because again, it's all about fitting into my box, and this is my little world, and I've got to protect it, and everything outside of my narrow view is somehow either a distraction, or it's a psyop, or it's a deep state, it's the CIA, the Zionists, and the globalists, and now the Maoists. We've got to worry about the Maoists now again. They're infiltrating. All of these things are just distractions. It doesn't really matter. We just got to keep trucking on along towards making America great again, and don't be concerned with these little side things. They're not really important. It creates this mentality where we become very nearsighted to what's happening around us. Especially on the sort of foreign front. I think we shouldn't kid ourselves. Obviously, I devoted a whole show, me and Chuck, talking about what happened after Charlottesville. There are obviously lots of domestic problems that need to be confronted, but when you combined Donald Trump's declaration, of war against all the terrorists in Afghanistan, and keep this in mind too, that Obama and Bush, but Obama more so, really kind of played with the semantics of what a terrorist is. So, and what a civilian is, what collateral damage is. They reworked a lot of these various words and the meaning behind them. And of course, it's not an airstrike, it's kinetic force. Because that sounds better. It's not mass murder of civilians, it's collateral damage. It's sort of worth it. But you expand that out to, a terrorist can be someone that's at if you're the cousin of, if your brother's cousins, whatever, you're at a wedding, in Pakistan, up, they don't call them the frontier territories. But anyway, if you're up, in Pakistan, rural area in Pakistan, you're right by the border of Afghanistan. You're there for, your second cousin's niece's wedding. And there just so happens that, some relative of somebody that's there, he's a terrorist. Well, then you're all kind of terrorists, because you were there. And it's sort of okay to bomb you. Obama's definition of what's a civilian, what's not a civilian. Well, if you're of fighting age, okay, and you happen to be, in the vicinity of a terrorist, well, then you're considered a terrorist. You're not considered a civilian. You're considered, he could have been. And that applies to, I believe it was, something silly and arbitrary, like if you're above, 15 or something. So, and I don't think there was like a cap on that. So, if you're some 78-year-old Pakistani, grandfather of 7 children, and you just happen to live next door to someone who may or may not really be an Al-Qaeda operative, and you're vaporized in a drone strike, well, you're a terrorist too. So, with that idea in mind, this sort of reworking of our language and our semantics. And that is a very powerful tool. And we'll get a little all over the place with this. People may or may not know. I think I've mentioned it before, but L. Ron Hubbard of of course, the founder of Scientology, was very obsessed with semantics, and he was very obsessed with semantic theory. And there's a famous, I guess, semantic philosopher, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, who was a big influence on Hubbard. And a lot, and if you study Scientology at all, you'll see that Scientology invents a lot of their own words and phrases, but it also takes regular words and phrases that we would all know in the English language as having this very specific meaning. And in Scientology, though, they have maybe an opposite meaning, or they have a completely new, different meaning, and this is very powerful, and Hubbard understood the power of, if you can change the language that people use and you can use it to your own advantage, that's a very powerful tool in mind control, in running a cult, in having undue influence over people. Especially, when you take words that people are very familiar with and you say, no, the real meaning of that word is this. That's a very powerful tool. And in a lot of ways, the U.S. government, the military-industrial complex, the intelligence apparatus, they have been able to manipulate our own words and the semantics that we've come to know, and they've manipulated them. They've changed them. So it's not a missile strike, it's kinetic force. It's not mass murder of civilians, it's collateral damage. And this, of course, I think this is obvious to people. This makes it all very kind of easy and stuff for a lot of people to digest, and you kind of forget about you forget about the human toll, and you just sort of go by this military intelligence jargon, which is meaningless. But I think we've all been kind of guilty of this, to the extent that, when Donald Trump says, we're going to go after the terrorists in Afghanistan, well, does that mean the 14-year-old boy who lives next to a terrorist? Does that mean the 87-year-old grandfather who's visiting the wedding of one of his daughters, whose boyfriend's husband is a terrorist who's also at the wedding? Are they all terrorists? And we've already kind of I think it's a legacy of Obama and others. We've sort of missed the sort of those cues and things. We've forgotten what these words truly mean to us, and the sort of hidden nature behind that. So again, when Donald Trump is talking about we're going after the terrorists, and I know that that's, to some people, that was like, it was like a fucking pop in a Viagra. This was great, wonderful. But keep in mind that it's first of all, what is even a terrorist anymore? The people that we go after. But it basically was yet another signal to go all out, that the gloves are off. It no longer matters, and you can do whatever you want to. And the fact that so many people on both sides of the political spectrum, the far right, the far left, however you want to categorize it, none of them are really all, they were kind of upset in the moment, when he made this speech, but that's kind of it. But you wouldn't see them, getting upset about the fact that, well, he's already kind of done this in Syria and Iraq right now. Not to mention Somalia and Yemen, where we really have no clue what's going on. But this has already been happening. And Afghanistan is just the next one. But to go back to this idea that we live in, again, like JP said in his article, this sort of the alternate reality of the alt-right, they no longer see this anymore. It's all, it's really, the big battle is in this sort of, what's his name? Huntington. It's this clash of civilization. It's us against the globalist Jewish, deep state elite, or it's us against, the evil, misogynist Trump, white ethno-nationalist people. And there's, we are in an ideological fight. But that's what everything becomes. It doesn't become about the reality of, well, okay, even if Trump is battling the deep state, let's say he is, but does this excuse all of his various pronouncements and actions? Are we just sort of ignoring all of that stuff that's going on? And I think, and I'll try and kind of get to my point with this. I think that this mindset infects our brains to such a degree that then when it comes to learning about new things, learning about stuff that we may have no idea about, or have a loose understanding of, or maybe it's something we have somewhat of an understanding of, but maybe coming from a different perspective or something like that, or just simply, it's something but it's still worth revisiting. We can't see that. We don't want to look at those things. We don't want to be concerned with them. It doesn't matter because it's all part of the problem, and that's the thing. It's all, there's always some ultimate evil enemy that's in the shadows lurking. That's this amorphous, entity, or maybe it's Bill Clinton or Hillary or George or whatever. That's what's there, but we can't really see, we can't see that we're being conned constantly. And this brings me to this truly wonderful comment that I got from a listener of mine and a subscriber, I will add. They may not be a subscriber after this, but, whatever. I don't really care. If you're going to send me these sort of snide little comments, you're going to get a snide answer from me. But I got a comment from, I'm not going to name who they are, but the comment reads, quote, "If you are not yet an asset," in quotes, "check out Aaron and Melissa Dykes. P.S. That lady who was going to Palestine who you interviewed was likely a CIA agent, as is the guy supervising your journal articles." End of comment. Now, this, to me, is just sort of illustrates much of my point that we can't see what's happening around us. There's got to be some sort of ulterior motive. There's got to be some sort of dark force. So apparently I'm an asset of what, I'm not sure. So I should then check out Aaron and Melissa Dykes, who I used to follow somewhat. They had some occasionally good stuff. But, I won't be following, so I guess I am an asset because I'm not going to follow them because I find most of their stuff to be just sort of trivial, run-of-the-mill conspiracy culture, clickbait. Everything's but George Orwell and Google and the moon landing is fake. And believe me, I'm into exploring those things. I talk about them on the show, but I don't need to know about all the secret underground bases all over the U.S. and how, the FEMA camps are going to rise from the ashes of those. And furthermore, so I'm an asset for whatever reason, but Aaron and Melissa Dykes, who have a show on Amazon Prime, they're not assets. So you can have a show and make money off of the CIA's, cloud-based service provider, but I'm an asset. Now, on to the P.S. That lady who was going to Palestine who you interviewed was likely a CIA agent. So first off, that lady, my friend Lizzie, who I've known for over 10 years, over 10 years. First of all, she went to Palestine, okay? She wasn't going. She'd already went and come back. And, I love Lizzie to death, but she would be the worst CIA agent in the history of their long and illustrious career, going all the way back to OSS. Lizzie can barely keep my secrets to herself, let alone, national security and things like that. And what would she even be getting out of being a CIA agent? She's so wholly unqualified to do that. And then you're talking about Clifford being with the CIA. Clifford Cobb, of course, being the editor of the American Journal of Economics and Sociology, where I contributed, and Tom and Aaron and many other people did, Matt Alford. Why? So Clifford, who took balls to put together an entire issue about this. No other journal has really done this. as far as I know. There's no academic journal that has and that went out and allowed us to really kind of go outside the box and talk about everything from the Cold War to esotericism and the occult to 9/11. Transhumanism. We talked about video games, and no one has done that. And I don't know what the CIA would actually get. I know that you're insinuating that I don't know, some sort of controlled opposition or whatnot. But no, it's not. It's just not the case. I don't know why you think that. I don't know what the CIA would really gain from this. Now there are certainly there are ways of covering the relationship between the CIA and the Hollywood in a way that is advantageous to them, but it is not at all any of the articles that we contributed to this. And furthermore, if it was some sort of controlled opposition, we wouldn't have been so harsh against the agency. But and I'll just one other thing, because this really just kind of pissed me off. It's really not. Now, listen, my friend Lizzie is not in any danger. She's not in the Middle East right now. But calling aid workers, calling people that work at NGOs, calling journalists, CIA agents in the Middle East is not really, it's not a safe thing to do. A lot of people get killed. A lot of people get hurt. A lot of people are, can't help the people that they might be there to help because, they are believed to be CIA agents. So hurling around that epithet, against people is really, stupid and ignorant and can also be dangerous. So keep that in mind. But beyond that, what do we have here? Again, we've got someone who listens to my work, clearly, because they give me money every month. They follow my work. They appear, I guess, to be a fan of mine because they need they're not sure if I'm an asset, but they think that if I listen to these other people, maybe that will I don't know, change me, and I'll no longer be an asset anymore. And I guess I should break off my friendship with my friend Lizzie and her entire family. Let me add. I know all. I'm friends with all of her sisters and her brother. So I guess they're all a bunch of CIA plants. Even though again they would make the worst CIA agents ever. But and where am I going with this? Right? Well, before when I was talking about this idea that we can't see. We don't want to see the big picture in anything. Instead, it's all going to be this narrow focus. And it's going to be me or us versus them. Me versus the system. So again, what do I have? I have this listener who believes that I might be an asset of the CIA, that I work for the CIA. They don't really want to actually, they have no constructive criticism, say, about my writing. Or they don't even have any constructive criticism about what Lizzie and I discussed. But, I'm CIA. I'm an asset. And I need to listen to this person. So again, it's this ignoring what's around you. They're not picking up on, point out how Clifford is some sort of a CIA operative who's manipulating our articles in the journal for his own ends. It's not about that. It's just, again, it's about this narrow worldview where this person has the answers. They know the secrets. They know that it's really all a CIA plot and that I'm an asset, and blah, blah. I'm still going to give you money, but, I'm an asset. So I guess that gives you the right to criticize me, which I don't really, not in this way, it doesn't. So it shocks me. Again, that people are still so sort of clouded by this whole this facade that everybody is a secret agent of a various intelligence agency, and everyone's an asset, and you can't really trust anyone. There are a few people you can trust that just regurgitate the same few clickbait articles and videos over and over and over again that just reinforce what you want to hear. Okay, which is all that the mainstream media does when they just ignore civilian casualties all over the Middle East and South Asia, and instead, no, let's just give them more clickbait about Russiagate. Mueller's gonna figure this thing out, and we're gonna get Trump. We're gonna impeach him. And then on the opposite end, it's all the deep state. It's all the deep. Don't look at any of these other things. Don't look at the people that he's surrounding himself with. Don't in the cabinet. And let's only consume what we want to hear. So that's why you get Cernovich and Pasoybic and all these other dipshits that just pump out the same article over and over again. In the same video, they go on Periscope all the time to basically rant and rave about the same things. And all the people that consume them, all they want to do is hear the same things over and over again. God forbid they're challenged by something. God forbid they learn something new. And God forbid they give credit where credit's due. And, I think that you get a lot of that when you start producing media and things like that. People, that you're an asset or whatever. And a lot of it is, jealousy. That you've done something that they haven't. And I've talked about this before on the show. But, I do find it's interesting that with all the stuff I put out there, all the different things, and if you don't like it, fine. You can criticize me as long as it's not just sort of stupid. Now apparently I'm some sort of Antifa George Soros plant. I'm a liberal that's I don't know, some multicultural agent of change. That's what lately. Because I don't like, Nazis and white supremacists and things like that. I mean, it apparently means I'm some sort of a communist lefty. I don't know. I mean, I'm like, they're basically, they want to say you're a pussy without saying it. But I'm all those things. But they don't want to kind of, look deeper into this. They don't want to kind of maybe try to understand these things. They don't want to really look at it with any critical lens because, and this is what I find so interesting. They'll still listen to my stuff, but they hate me because I don't adhere to every single little thing that they adhere to. And they want to kind of like convert me back, or convert me to whatever their mindset is. And, I think this happens obviously with random comments that you receive, in emails and, comment sections and things like that from people, where they basically just sort of want you to fall in line with their beliefs and with what they consume. But this is also, what's going on in a bigger sense with the sort of fight with the alt-right media versus the mainstream media versus the sort of tiny little segment of the independent, media that still kind of exists out there, to some degree. And they're all kind of fighting for this. Then they all sort of want you to essentially just sort of fall in line and just sort of keep going forward. And what's so interesting is that their end goals are all kind of the same, or like they're all willing to kind of feed the beast. Like JP and I were saying, even if it's on one side, it's the deep state is doing this and it's Russia's doing that. Well, it doesn't really matter. It's still all driving ratings. Ultimately, these people are, they're all sort of coming to the end, result. And that's the same thing with the, people that are, you should really, if you're not, woke yet, you should really follow this person. Which is the same. I mean, you just want to put me into some sort of a box, and you want me to regurgitate the talking points that you've heard over and over and over and over again, just to reinforce you, to make yourself feel better. You don't want to look at what's really happening around us. Does the Central Intelligence Agency have an incredible amount of influence over our pop culture, over our films, over the way we interpret films, over the way we interpret history? we were talking earlier about this sort of changing the meaning of words. Well, the CIA constantly changes the meaning of history when they get involved in films. We don't, but I don't really care about that, because the guy that helped you, that gave you a platform to talk about that, well, he's a CIA agent. The end of the story. Shut down the conversation. Let's just get back to basics. Google is going to take over the world. While everybody loves to just sort of skip over Amazon, even though they control the news that we get. They control what we buy. They're soon to control the food supply for many people, and Whole Foods. But that's fine. Don't look at that. Google is the new 1984. And I saw a silly meme that made me laugh. But people like Paul Joseph Watson and a lot of people on the right have sort of co-opted Orwell as some sort of born again right winger or something. And I think Orwell didn't he informed on communists or socialists. I think communists maybe. And I don't think Orwell was on the left or on the right really. But everybody loves to sort of claim Orwell as their own. But Paul Joseph Watson sort of harping on about 1984 is happening here. In response to, I don't know, some sort of protest to remove, I don't know, another fucking Confederate statue or something like that. And someone just sort of like, made it into a meme with the, the bottom, the text being, you do realize, Orwell went to Spain to fight the fascists with guns. But again, that doesn't matter. That's not important. What is important is blocking out all those other things and just narrowly focusing on what's in front, and that's either you're with Donald Trump or you're against Donald Trump. And that's the end story. We don't want to be concerned with anything else that's going on, especially crazy things going on in other countries. JP and I didn't get to talk about this in the first hour, but Nikki Haley, our wonderful ambassador to the UN, who's just, I don't know what the hell she did to get that job, but I don't know how she's possibly qualified. But there she is, at the UN. First she was saying that, North Korea is begging for war. Okay. And then, earlier I think it was just today, I think JP pointed out to me, but I don't have it in front of me, but she basically was saying that Iran is already not in compliance with their nuclear deal, and they need to be, handled. They need to be taken care of. So really, again, we're back to this, Iran is the ultimate enemy. And in many, ways, I mean, for the neocons and, and that whole group, neocons and neoliberal interventionists, all those, basically, everybody in Washington. Iran they are the only independent country left in that region. I mean, Syria to a degree, but I mean they're still battling with ISIS and now with the FSA that's gone to Turkey for funding, and you get the Kurds and stuff. I mean, so they're not really a whole country yet, at least. But Iran is the only sort of independent nation that's left right now, and that's always been the ultimate. Again, ever since the Iranian people decided they didn't want the Shah in power anymore, we've had a real hard on to go back in there and take care of those mad mullahs and whatnot. And Nikki Haley is just she's positioning herself to be the I'm the new sort of figurehead for this anti-Iran New World Order neocon paradise. And JP, give credit where credit's due. JP pointed out to that he thinks this is her positioning herself for some sort of a presidential run or something, or certainly running for some sort of higher office. And of course, UN ambassador, that's wonderful. That's a lot of and she's a governor, so she's got the the sort of national domestic politics. She's got foreign affairs under her belt, and everybody loves to hate Iran, but. Can you remember back when if Samantha Power sneezed at the UN, it was front page news. Everybody wanted to talk about it. And again, I hated Samantha Power. I went on and on about Samantha Power on podcasts, on interviews. I've talked about, the horribleness of the UN with, Matthew Russell Lee, who I've had on the show a couple of times, UN correspondent. But Nikki Haley she's like non-existent. It like doesn't matter. She's not on the radar anywhere. It's not important to anybody that she's saying, basically, she's now laid out the cards that not only is Kim Jong-un begging for war as if he wants to be obliterated. Again, all rogue nations or undesirables, they all have a death wish. So, all of Iran wants to go up, in a glowing nuclear mushroom cloud, so they can go to heaven and have whatever, 40 virgins or whatnot. And the North Koreans are the same thing. They secretly want to die. That's what again, because that dehumanizes them. We change our language, about these people. We change the meaning behind phrases and words and the way that we view people because it makes it easier to destroy them. And that's what, all of this sort of talk with, the suicidal regimes and whatnot. But, Nikki Haley is just sort of going off about this stuff. First off, is this independent of Donald Trump? I mean, whatever you want to say about Samantha Power or even Susan Rice or even, other, ambassadors to the UN, they were ultimately, they were going by what the president said. Traditionally the UN ambassador does not sort of go all rogue. There's a possibility for other sort of, cabinet positions and stuff like that. But when it comes to the UN, I mean, no, you're an ambassador. You are there to represent the United States. So you're there to represent whatever their particular policies are. Yet this is not making anything. Samantha Power would make a statement that people didn't like, and suddenly it was like, the Satan himself had come on down to New York to sit at the Security Council, whereas Nikki Haley it's not on the radar. It's nowhere to be found. Again, because everyone is so kind of concerned with this petty BS on the sidelines. Well, anyway, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm sort of going, kind of went off on that. Obviously, I just got back from vacation. It is very hot in my room. So I'll try and, we've got a little bit more time. Oh, you know what? I have a couple things. One, I wanted to, thank Will and Nick for, signing up for Patreon. So you might, that should offset the other Patreon subscriber, who I probably just got to cancel his payment after, talking about his comment to me. But thank you, Will and Nick, for signing up, to Patreon. Of course, if you want to support my work, you can go to patreon.com/Pierce Redmond. And we also, have the new bonus podcast is up. We spoke with, good friend Chuck O'Celli all about the JFK Lancer Conference. So if you're interested in JFK research at all, definitely go to, I think it's jfklancer.com. I'm not 100% on that, but it'll be linked up in the show notes. jfklancer.com, and you can see a full list of all of the various guests that are going to be speaking there. Lots of interesting people. I think Russ Baker from Who, What, Why is going to be there. Chuck O'Celli. There's a whole bunch. I'm trying to pull up all of the different Stu Wexler, Gary Murr, Carmine Savastano, who's on the Chuck Show quite a bit. Lots of different guests, really interesting stuff. So yeah, anyway, if you want to listen to that exclusive podcast, then you can always go to patreon.com and you can become a subscriber at the $5 or above level. So yeah, lots of cool stuff. Chuck and I talked about how the JFK is viewed in the conspiracy media, conspiracy culture right now. So many years after this extremely important event took place, and that's a funny one too. It's like all these people that are talking about the deep state and whatnot. None of them talk about JFK. It's like that doesn't exist at all in their world. But that aside, I did also get a question from Will. Of course, I don't get many of them, and I understand that's fine. But if you do, if you subscribe at the $3 level, you of course get to ask me a question that I will answer on air. Of course, anyone can ask me a question, and if I have the time, I'll try and respond to it. But if you become a subscriber for $3 or more, you can ask me a question, and I'll definitely answer it on air. So I have the question from Will: how do you manage to learn so much about so many different topics by your age? And I believe Will is a little bit older than I am. I'm 29. So great question, Will. Thank you for sending it in. I do love getting the questions and answering them, particularly on days like this where I don't have a guest for a whole hour. But how do I manage to learn so much about so many different topics by your age? I guess, short answer, I've always just been a big kind of consumer of news and media and books, particularly nonfiction. I was always, I read, this is just one example, but, I read Lawrence Wright's book, The Looming Tower, back when it came out. I don't even remember when this was, but I was probably definitely still in high school, I think. Which it's still a good book. Obviously, it's a mainstream book. Okay, so 2006. So that's still when I was in high school. But, so I've always kind of been fascinated by this stuff, and I think I have a fairly good memory for this. But I will say, Will, sometimes it's you kind of have to pick and choose, what you learn or what you retain, what you remember. There are a lot of people out there that read a lot and are constantly consuming media and books and facts and things like that, but they don't necessarily retain that knowledge. I don't know. I guess I focus a lot on it. I don't know quite how I learned so much. I think part of it, and this is, trade secret, part of it is that I am good at, I don't want to I don't want to upset people, but I am good to some degree at sounding a lot better than I really am. So, that might be the all of the years that I spent acting, like in high school and in college as well a little bit. So I can also sound very good when I'm talking about things. But I don't know. I've actually found myself more and more, Will, finding that it's harder to learn so much about so many different topics, and I find that I have to kind of limit where I want to go with these things because there's just so much information out there, and I do find myself at times kind of losing sight of things or literally just sort of forgetting things. I'm constantly even things like the OJ trial. I'll have to look up dates of certain events and and certain characters that pop up in that case. Even in the Epstein case, I'm constantly having to recheck things. So I don't know if I'm that good at learning so much about so many different topics by my age. I think I also have the sort of benefit of having grown up before the internet was a thing. So back when you did have to read books and newspapers and watch documentaries, not necessarily a YouTube video of somebody talking or audio with lots of slides. I think that's a big help. But also having, experienced that, because I think I don't retain as much sometimes when it's on a computer screen, whereas when it's like a physical book that you can hold and you can go through the pages and whatnot and, put your Post-it notes and things like that. I think that really helps. But I think the fact that I grew up before the advent of the internet being so sort of ubiquitous with society, and then kind of shifting into it, I think that kind of maybe gave me something of an upper hand. Because I think, I do look around me and I do see a lot of idiots in my generation or in the generation, a few years after me. But I do think, for people like me and even my sister, who's just about 4 years younger than me, she still also kind of grew up before the internet was like a thing. I think that's really sort of helped us to be better at, consuming information and then digesting it. I think that's a big thing too. And I think that's sort of what you mean with your question, Will, is how am I able to digest this on so many different topics? But I think it's that's a happy medium. Because then of course, I use the internet constantly for all my research, along with, books and movies and other things like that. But you kind of have to use the internet. But I think, being able to kind of, separate the two. I mean, I can still go into a library and find a book, and I can even do it with the card catalog. I don't need to, do it on a computer. I think that's a big help in managing to learn about so many different topics. Again, the physicalness of it, when you really kind of go out there and do it, I think you retain that information a lot better. Because believe me, you see a lot of idiots on the internet that they do nothing but learn, quote unquote, or they consume quite a bit, but they're not really learning anything. They're just sort of hoovering it up. But there's nothing really to that. But I thank you for having faith in me. Because I don't know. I think I've had to limit it. You know what I mean? A little bit of announcement. Christoph Gehrman and I should be recording or getting back into podcasting hopefully in about 2 months. I know I keep saying that. But I think 2 months will, November is when we're aiming to get back into podcasting. Christoph is just, he's working on school stuff and finishing up with his thesis and things like that. But that's like one avenue that I haven't been following quite so much. So I kind of have to get back into that. But no, I don't know. Managing to learn so much about so many different things. I think it's just budgeting your time. I think also allowing yourself the space to not, be learning. You need to allow yourself the space to relax. And I think that when you allow yourself that sort of free time, I think it recharges your brain and it gives your brain a little bit of downtime, or it flexes your brain in a different sort of a way that ultimately helps, to help you when it is crunch time, when you do need to be kind of looking, researching things and whatnot like that. So I think there's a happy medium. I don't think there's like an easy way for me to really answer it. So I hope I answered that for you, Will. But if not, you can always let me know. You can always send me a message on Patreon, and I'll try and answer it again or deal with it as best as I can. But yeah, I don't know. People always sort of say that to me. I personally don't think I'm all that good at learning, all these different topics. I think I just sound really good. But yeah. Well, thank you for the question, Will. We are almost at the end of today's show. So thank you all for listening. Thank you for putting up with me post vacation. I know I was a little bit kind of all over the place today. And I know I've been saying that a lot on the shows, and I know that many of you out there don't really care, and you've been loving the shows. To me, each show is kind of like my baby. Some of the babies I don't care quite so much about. But thank you for putting up with me, post vacation when my brain is still a little bit frazzled from all of the money I spent and all the relaxing I did. But lots of really interesting shows coming up in the next couple of weeks. Hopefully, I'll be doing an excellent episode with Tom Secker and Robbie Martin for Clandestine. We're going to be talking about Operation Terror, which is an amazing little conspiracy thriller about 9/11 involving the Council on Foreign Relations and the military-industrial complex. I highly encourage people to go check out Operation Terror. It is hokey, but it's a fun movie. I'll be talking about that, and I'm also going to have Steven Singular on the show very soon to discuss his book Talk to Death, all about the murder of Alan Berg. So very exciting stuff. Thank you all so much for listening, and I'll be talking to you next week.
No rules, no taboo topics, no fear of doom, We are American Freedom Radio.
Since the beginning, civilizations have risen and fallen. Rome, ancient Persia, Mongolia, Britain, and now America. Befallen by natural disasters, broken families, moral decay, lack of preparedness and conflict. Don't let this happen to you. Are you prepared? Would you like to help others prepare? AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com is looking for distributors. Email bugoutamerica@usa.com. Go to AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com, a veteran-owned and operated company. But do it today.
This is Rick Simpson, and you're listening to American Freedom Radio.
And I hope people support American Freedom Radio. And I hope people vote with their dollars and really understand the value of having American Freedom Radio. Because that's my family. If you love me at all, Jack Blood, support American Freedom Radio. Like, my family has literally disowned me. American Freedom Radio. Danny and Don and those guys, those are my actual family. So please support these guys, because they have all the technology, they have all these great things that they're going to do, but obviously they can't do it all by themselves. So not only would I like to see you support them, I'd like to see you retweet them and repost them and really get involved and get on the bandwagon, so to speak, on doing that do-it-yourself promotion, because they're a do-it-yourself radio network, and we just need that so much.
You're listening to AmericanFreedomRadio.com, the network who perseveres in delivering intelligent debate, constructive dialogue with true independence. The freedom to broadcast the truth is not free at all. So what is American Freedom Radio worth to you? The empowering information with fun, honest and pure integrity behind it provides an example to follow. Friendships to flourish with the moral altruism that pulls no punches. The hosts sacrifice and show remarkable discipline in their duty to deliver quality radio and service to the community with strength, wisdom and loyalty. The founders of AFR wish to thank you personally for sharing your views and insights to make the best radio and alternative media. Now it's time for you to give something back and play a vital role in the future of America. Be as generous with us as we've been with you. Click on the donate banner at AmericanFreedomRadio.com or volunteer by emailing AmericanFreedomRadio@ymail.com. Vaccine, psychotropic drugs, and artillery batteries not included.
Launch sequence initiated.
We're now in the approach phase. Everything looking good. Control is good. 5, rocket copy. 3, 2, 1, engage.
Prepare your mind to experience American Freedom Radio.